Never let the future disturb you. You will meet it, if you have to, with the same weapons of reason which today arm you against the present. Marcus Aurelius. Alrighty, welcome back to another episode of the Full Metal Cast. I do have to apologize. I did not get a Christmas episode out. If you follow on Instagram, I threw a quick story up. Had a little family medical emergency that had to be dealt with. Everyone's good. Everyone's healthy. So didn't get a short holiday episode out before retreating and partaking in the marathon that is a celebration of Christmas across two families now. But we're back. Going to try to get a quick solo episode out before New Year's because I got a few things to talk about. And the next episode, I'm hoping to get several of the boys back on. Cigars, whiskey, our own little version of the Schizo cast, the view for autists, if you will. But first things first, fuck PayPal. As many of you in the community probably are already familiar with, PayPal sucks when it comes to using their services to use your own money on things that we enjoy. However, I ran into a particularly interesting issue where I had paid to run an ad on Instagram to boost a post for the Tyler Michael, the Lords of Gastown episode, one of the 3 posts I made for that. Originally paid for it, decided, you know what, I don't like it, so I canceled the ad campaign shortly after I sent it through to make some changes. Zero of the money or the dollars I had submitted for the ad campaign had been spent. You can track spend on Instagram. So I canceled it. Immediately get a notification from Instagram saying we've noticed suspicious activity on your ad account. So we've, suspended that. Reach out to support. Their support's fucking useless. Shocker. But then PayPal seemed to also suspect like suspicious activity, froze everything up. And I was like, hey guys, I submitted like a report. What's the deal with this? Here's what happened. Here's like these are the order of events. I can confirm this was all me. Here's the amount, here's screenshots or whatever. And I get an automatic reply from PayPal saying, your appeal or whatever the fuck it is has been denied, essentially saying that we're going to continue to freeze your account. And basically the report you just sent is absolute horseshit. And we know what's best. And this is almost like an automatic reply. Like 2 minutes after I had submitted my appeal to unfreeze my account with PayPal. I honestly don't care about the Instagram ad account. I kept that one frozen and that's still suspended because they won't reply and they're useless. But PayPal came back very quickly and said, nope, you're wrong. This is still going to be frozen. And they made the rather critical error on their part at the end of this email saying, if you wish to view the documents or, the proof that we use to come to this conclusion, email this address, with your query or your appeal number. To which I did. And within 10 minutes, they said, oh, yep, you know what? You're right. Sorry, our mistake. We'll unfreeze your account. But fuck PayPal for just automatically reverting to declining claims and appeals by default and making you sort of poke them and push them, just a second level deeper. So don't feel bad about pushing, whether it be Meta, Google, PayPal, whoever it is, just annoy the shit out of them because at the end of the day, it's your money, it's your data, it's your freedom of speech, however you want to look at it. Don't feel bad about just hounding them and staying on them. Don't give them a fucking inch. End of that rant. Some big things have happened since I was on the air last. The drones over New Jersey and seemingly everywhere in the United States. And as frustrating and as retarded as many of the conspiracy theories are about said drones, they do give me a tremendous amount of hope. And that's because it tickles me pink to know that people would rather believe that the government is trying to enslave us by faking an alien invasion or to enact martial law and a totalitarian regime, rather than to believe that the drones that have FAA compliant lights may be actually looking for something that may pose a threat to us. That we have so little faith in our own government and their ability to keep us safe, that we would rather believe that something completely schizophrenic and unhinged would be behind their appearance. I do subscribe to the theory that they are looking for something or someone. A lot of the narrative around that they're looking for a dirty bomb or materials to make a dirty bomb seem to line up the best, but nothing's been confirmed. Nothing's really known. So I don't really speculate too much. I just wanted to say I like how absolutely unhinged the theories are around them, and it gives me a tremendous amount of hope. The other thing that gives me a tremendous amount of hope is how the media and the internet in general are reacting to the Luigi arrest and upcoming trial. He is touted as the people's hero, which is a little crazy. And I'm going to take a step back here and say I fully subscribe to the idea that violence uh, is never the answer in any situation. Violence will never bring about positive long term change. Historically, it has never happened. Um, and so it would be insane to believe that it would happen. Violence in any form is immoral unless it is in like a self-defense manner, I hold, and what he did was immoral. Period. Cut and dry. However, I do find it interesting, at the very least, to see how it is being perceived and celebrated. I believe the quote was, you should aspire to live your life in such a way as to when you are murdered on the New York City sidewalk, the population, by and large, doesn't celebrate your death like the Ewoks celebrating the destruction of the second Death Star. Um, it is an interesting temperature point to see where society views, I guess, the classes, the clashing of the classes, if you will, especially the medical industrial complex and the medical class, the insurance class, ruling class, whatever you want to call it, how little we think of them, given how much harm they've done to us. So just nothing more than very interesting. And I know I post a lot about the trial, a lot about what he did, Luigi. But just know, like, my stance is violence bad. Murdering never the way to get your point across in a long term or constructive fashion. But I do think that it really shows, I think, how broken we think the medical system is in this country. But also it is revealing how all of these institutions ran by the government that are supposed to be for our protection really don't work for us. They work for the state and or the highest bidder. For example, the perp walk. That level of showmanship, that level of making an example out of somebody hasn't been shown, since we were able to capture an attempted presidential assassin or an actual successful presidential assassin, or a terrorist. And speaking of terrorism, there's been rumor that he's going to get slapped with a terrorism charge. I'm not sure if that has happened yet. But that has never been thrown around or even discussed whenever we are able to capture these mass shooters, these school shooters, and whatnot. And then just recently it came to light that all of the, or most, or many health insurers rather, have been paying and pressuring the DOJ to push the death sentence here. And that just shows that, one, the police aren't there for your protection. They're there for the protection of those who pay them. They're there simply for that and for nothing else. You will never see them acting so tough when it comes time to protecting your children. In the instance of a school shooter, you'll never see them that tough when it comes time to protecting your neighborhoods when there's a string of robberies or violent crime. Only in the case where it matters so much for their public image and their paychecks will they pull out all the stops and really show force and really crack down on keeping their city safe. And oh, by the way, let's take a quick check in on the New York subway where someone was just lit on fire on the train. There's actually interesting sort of internet theory or speculation going on with the woman, since no one seems to have been able to get her name or her picture right. There's been a lot of fake names and fake pictures for the victim floating around. I'm not really sure why. Scratch that. I think I know why. It's probably an anti-immigration sort of campaign, sort of push thing to make her look like she was pure and innocent and white and all this stuff. But nonetheless, what he did was absolutely awful. But like, you see a cop just walking past like a smoldering person on the subway doing nothing. Um, and again, it's not about keeping you or us safe. It's simply about proving their worth and making a show for those who pay them and keeping those who pay them safest. That's all that they're about. And the legal system as well. Tolstoy, though, did have an excellent quote about sort of political violence and assassinations and whatnot. And I made a reel where I was reading this quote, but just for the sake of redundancy, since we're on the topic, and I do subscribe to Tolstoy's beliefs on political violence, violence in general, and real like revolution and whatnot. But he says the teaching of Christ repeals the law, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. But those who have always clung to that law and still cling to it, and who apply it to a terrible degree, not only claiming an eye for an eye, but without provocation decreeing the slaughter of thousands, as they do when they declare war, have no right to be indignant at the application of that same law to themselves in so small and insignificant a degree that hardly one king or emperor is killed for each 100,000, or perhaps even for each million who are killed by the other, and with the consent of kings and emperors. Kings and emperors not only should not be indignant at such murders, but they should be surprised that such murders are so rare, considering the continual and universal example of murder that they give to mankind. This is extremely applicable here, considering how the news, the media, and your government officials are, crying out against how the public's perceiving Luigi and whatnot. When this United Healthcare asshole is responsible for declining so many claims and the deaths of I don't know how many millions or hundreds of thousands of individuals. Um, so do with that what you will. And speaking of terrorism and school shooters, there's another one it looks like that took place, I think it was Wisconsin. From what I was able to gather through a lot of the Twitter propaganda, uh, appears that the shooter was indeed a female, nihilist, um, resentful of being placed recently, from what I can gather, at a Christian school. Again, where are the police to keep you and your kids safe in that matter? She seemed to be a walking red flag, but regardless, you pay taxes, and then you just sort of trust that things are in place to keep your most prized possession, your children, the future generation, safe as they're whisked off to school, and nothing. How do we let that happen? But we then deploy the entire military, industrial, and police, law enforcement complex at what we think was the guy who killed the United Healthcare CEO. Again, strictly speculation. There's a lot of shit floating around. Do I think he did it? Yeah. Does it seem kind of weird? Yeah. But yeah, just the difference in responses and how it's treated even after the fact just goes to show how little they actually care about doing their job or what they tell you their job is. So again, this is another example. Speaking of failing at doing your job, though, I heard a great comment. Boeing must have been hiring Luigi's family or Luigi as their new hitman because not a lot of whistleblower complaints lately. And we seem to have stopped seeing headlines about Boeing planes falling out of the sky in flames and, half of it falling apart and ripping people out of their seats and whatnot. However, we do know that the Boeing astronauts are still stuck in space and will be there until at least 2025. I think in March it was, which is over half a year when it was supposed to, be done. I think it was only supposed to be a 10-day trip. But as I was preparing the notes for this episode, I woke up to an unfortunate news report that a Boeing 737 in Korea just exploded on the runway as it was trying to land due to a failure with the landing gear, it seems. Out of like roughly 180 people on board, only 2 survivors have been found so far. And as much as we like to shit on Boeing, there are still reports coming out. It appears that the tower had communicated with the plane that there was a high risk for bird strikes. The 2 survivors who were actually part of the flight crew in the back of the plane were able to sort of corroborate that. So it is possible that this is not a Boeing issue and it is simply, or a bird strike may have contributed or caused the crash. So TBD, just a reminder that Boeing is still out there and they are still in business, and that really sucks. Do with that what you will. Let's see. Ooh, more on failing to do your job or what you are, supposed to be doing. A new report just came out. It was actually data that was derived from the Census Quarterly Survey, specifically looking at state and local tax revenue. And starting at 2009 to 2024, it looks like. So, yeah, year to date, it shows year over year, it shows the increase in the revenue that state and local governments derive strictly from property taxes. And spoiler alert, the trend is exponentially positive. Little dips here and there, some years, but like graph starts at 120 million roughly that these local governments were making in 2009, and in 2004 we are going to end the year with these state and local municipalities making almost 200 billion dollars on simply your property taxes. This obviously contributes to the talking point that you truly own nothing in this country and you have no freedoms. You need permissions and you pay for said permissions. Owning, quote unquote, a house or a property, which you have to take out a mortgage on anyways, which is absurd. You are still essentially renting that land from the government and you pay that in property tax. And yes, between 2009 to 2004, it seems they're making an extra $80 billion over that time span, reaping in over $200 million a year. Actually, that's almost 210 billion I'm seeing now. Question: are your streets in your neighborhood getting any better? Are your utilities becoming any safer, any more resilient? Does your electricity not go out when there's a strong gust or a storm? Are your pipes lead free? Is the water that's getting pumped into your home clean? Is it safe in your neighborhoods? Do you feel safe in your neighborhoods? And I would say across the board, that metric is probably trending in the negative, most likely opposite to how this property tax revenue graph is looking. And again, it just goes to show that despite all that you do that would make you think that, the system's working, that you're safe, that they're working for you and your best interest, and that taxes go mostly towards something good, it's simply just revenue that goes into the pockets of those that you voted or didn't vote for, to sit in a seat and give you permissions just simply to live your life as a human being. So I'll make sure to throw this graph in the episode as well for the video viewers, and I'll probably try to share it on Instagram too for those who don't watch the video. But very alarming. It's something to keep in mind every time you hit a pothole, every time the power goes out, every time you get a boil water notification, or any time someone's house gets broken into or some sort of crime takes place in your local neighborhood. A reminder that regardless of how much you pay, how much they demand you pay, how much they say they have your best interests in mind, they're never going to be able to and never will have your best interests in mind and do what is best for you, your loved ones, and your community. That will always be up to you and nobody else, because nobody's going to know what you need. Nobody's going to know what is best for you and your community but you. And going forth and taking care of yourselves and your communities in a moral and an ethical way is part of your purpose as a human being. It's not to outsource that to people who have no job, who their only job is to take money from you. Food for thought. Let's see, the property taxes, the Boeing. Oh yeah, this sort of flew under the radar, but last week an emergency was declared in the state of California due to bird flu, and not in people. It was bird flu that seems to be found and transmitted in cows. And state of emergency declared, right? So shut it down. This is clearly a huge threat. People must be getting sick and dying. Nope, it's just in cows. And just to further clarify, this year, so in the year of 2024, only 36 humans have had bird flu this year, all of which were working on California dairy farms, so around these cows, apparently. Nothing about their symptoms, nothing about whether they were even if they went to the hospital or are struggling, and there has been zero human to human transmission confirmed either. But nonetheless, a state of emergency, because clearly this is a massive issue and it needs to be tackled. your rights and freedoms be damned. I'm sure that they will definitely take care of this epidemic, make sure it doesn't spread anymore in an efficient and effective manner that does not produce any form of waste or minor infuriation among the populace of the state of California, which has been nothing but a beacon of government efficiency and right doing. Anywho, okay, let's talk about something fun that the autists like to talk about. Talk about guns. Yep. So if you've been following me for a little while, my last 2-3 posts have been on the new toy I've just bought, which is a Flux Raider. I love this stupid thing. And I bought it because originally I bought the Vector to be a backpack gun after a recent university shooting in the state that I followed very closely. The Vector's a little bulky though. And if I'm carrying anything else in a backpack, it doesn't really work, doesn't really fit, it's very heavy. I see the Flux as a tried and true and tested optimal backpack sort of gun. And for that reason, I am keeping it as slim and as lightweight as possible. Currently, I'm rocking two 21 round mags in it. I have a lead and steel PB3 as my optic. For those who don't know, that's sort of the latest acro competitor closed emitter, heavy duty, sort of can take a beating optic. It's cheaper than the acro though, with larger glass. I'm not sure what the percentage is and how much larger. I had that mounted to the rear sort of Picatinny section of the Flux with, I believe it's an Addy Ball Picatinny to P2 sort of mount. Not really what I think, not the final, I guess, mount that I really want to run on this. I don't really trust the brand. It seems to be Chinesium, but it was laying around for free, so I slapped it on there to get it together. I am looking at a Reptilia acro Picatinny to acro mount only because they seem to be the lowest profile and the slimmest option on the market. As I say that though, I have found as I've been dry firing, as I've been, sort of clearing my house with it, just due to the nature of the brace, you don't get a cheek weld really. And on top of that, even though there already is a considerable amount of height over bore with how you mount an optic to the Flux, um, I guess a thicker riser, a higher riser would probably be more intuitive for this platform, only because you really got to get down on it to really get a good sort of sight picture. So more playing to take place. We'll see if I go higher or if I go with the Reptilia. I just got to get out and shoot with it more and really push myself to go faster with it. I got a Surefire X300 for the light. Shout out to Cry Cowboy giving me it for free as a loaner until he figures out what he wants to do with it. Sig P320 slide with, I forget the brake or the comp that came with it when I bought it from the gentleman on tax swap. It does need to be timed. The individual is not rocking shims or timed it whatsoever, and so the barrel likes to stick out a little too far. So I got to retime that. And then I have this ambidextrous charging handle over like the rear optics plate. That is one thing I will change for sure. I want the sort of top mounted vertical charging handle that I think goes either on the front sight post. I think there are some that do mount to the rear, optics plate as well. But that will just sort of bring in the side profile of this thing and make it a little more concealable. But other than that, I like how it is. I want to keep everything as tight and as neat as possible. I'll probably find a light that doesn't stick out as much as a Surefire as well, just to keep it as compact as I can. But otherwise, I love this stupid thing. I like it as a bedside gun. I carry it around with me everywhere. It sits in my car. It's just a really fun, neat little build. The only thing I have an issue with, and I did see, we're going to read this live, I DM'd Flux about this because I was just curious if someone else had a similar issue or complaint. But even before I slapped in the 21 round mags, I was rocking just the stock 17s. And the spare mag up front, and you can probably hear it, it's very loose. It sits very loosely. There's a lot of wiggle north, south, east, west. It's just very loose in that spare magazine holder. And I have found as I've upgraded from the 17 to the 21 heavier mag, even if I lightly brush that front sort of mag release button to drop the spare mag, it just falls right out. Like you can breathe on it and it just falls. So I DM'd Flux to send him a video. I was like, hey, put this race back in here. Not sure if this is feedback that you guys have heard, but this is kind of annoying. It makes a lot of noise and it drops very easily. I sent them a video and they replied back within a matter of, let's see, what's the timestamp on this? In literally 16 minutes, they replied back. They replied, you can build up thickness on the rear face of the front mag well, either through stippling the inside, in parentheses, then raises the outermost surface, or tape, or some other way. Most people who don't like the wobble use tape, layered until satisfied with the mag you will use. That makes sense. Tolerances are super frustrating. Sorry, man. Hard balance between sticky and coming out smooth, and the short length on the top just means it will be more sloppy. We went back and forth and modified the mold a few times, too tight, and then had to open it back up because the mags vary widely in dimensions. That makes sense. So I guess I will find some tape. I'm not really sure which tape I'm going to slap on the inside here. We'll play around. I'm probably going to slap it, against the rear of the spare mag well, only because it's a flat surface that'll probably be easy to drop. I definitely have some electrical tape I'll probably slap in there. That doesn't work, I'll find like a hockey tape or a goon tape sort of company or a brand to really push in there. But more to come on that. Huge shout out to Flux, I guess, for responding super quickly and giving a lot of background as to why they designed that. I will say the number of functions on this thing are many and they are incredibly useful. Ambidextrous safety switch, which is awesome. The mag release for the primary mag being underneath my firing hand thumb is very neat, as well as an index finger primary mag release as well. And then you have the spare mag release, which you press lightly, it will drop the spare mag, which I've done in my kitchen several times. And if you hard push it, it will also drop the primary mag for quick reloads. For those who haven't seen a Garantham or any other gun tuber do a rundown of the Flux. Another cool thing too is I pull this brace back out. I got a couple extra pieces that came with this. The guy sent me everything that he bought with this. My Flux currently has a sort of a secondary window underneath where the PB3 is mounted. I'll take a picture where you can still use the iron sights on the P320, which are currently kind of poor because the rear sight's been taken out due to the optic plate. And I'm sort of looking through the ambidextrous charging handle and using the front sight. So it's a rough sort of aiming method, if you will. But there is one. I do know the top mount, the vertical charging handle, is much tighter if you are a fan and do want to use those backup irons. But if you don't and you're running suppressed, or you want to minimize gas to the face, Flux provided a plate that it just screws right in and covers up sort of the window that you would use for your backup irons. Thought that was very thoughtful and cool. And then in the back of the brace, there's a little compartment with a little like threaded hole above it for spare batteries. Those little, silver wafer batteries that are really tasty. You can store, I think, like 2 or 3 back there for your optics, whatever light you're running. Mostly optic batteries, though. Very, very cool. Very neat. And again, looking forward to carrying this and shooting this more and more. I see this getting a lot of use day in and day out. So that's sort of the rundown of the Flux. Again, Flux Defense didn't pay me. They just replied to a DM and a concern very, very quickly. So huge shout out. Really, really respect that. Really like that. And then sling. I am going to put a sling on this thing. And I did buy the Gray Fighter. I think it's the XC1. Which is their like minimalist, like micro sling sort of retention, I guess, storage solution. That if you follow them on Instagram, you will see them posting that device. It's mounted to the rear QD point in the brace of the Flux Raider. And it just holds the sling. When you fold it up in there, the other half of this thing is mounted right beneath the optic QD point. It just makes it very neat and very clean for when you don't want the sling, or when you're storing it, you don't want the sling to be caught on things as you rip it out of a bag. So I have that. The sling I'm going to roll with, I'm actually going to make myself. Not to give too much away for 2025. I guess there's more to come on slings in that category. I guess just stay tuned. I will announce, I guess, more on that little topic once I have finalized and built out the sling for this bad boy and have finished this build. But that'll do it for today. A quick little morning scramble episode, just before New Year's. Hopefully you enjoyed Christmas. Hopefully you have a great New Year's, and really looking forward to getting back on the air with some of the local idiots again, and just talking about a whole slew of things taking place and that have already happened in our space. But until then, stay metal. Thank you.